What is up, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Hockey Night on Broad Flyers pregame show. Tonight, the Philadelphia Flyers the Flyers are on the road for the first time for the second time in the last few days as they take on the Detroit Red Wings as they meet once again, going back to last week or so, and the first time in the last 7 days. Thanks again for joining me tonight, and a pleasant good evening, everybody. I'm your host, James Scorza, with you for the next 15 minutes or so. As the Flyers coming into this game on Saturday night had a shaky start to their game against the Minnesota Wild on Saturday afternoon up in Minnesota. And sometimes like that, the good teams like the Flyers have had the chance to get opportunities when it mattered the most. Didn't go the way it expected to happen for the Flyers, but the good news is that they take on another team that they know very, very well. Like I said, this is the first meeting they met against each other going back to last Thursday when it was a history-making night for Scott Laughton, who scored 4 goals and a career goal number 100 on the night against Detroit. That one is at the Wells Fargo Center. This one is at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, Michigan. And like we always do before we get into our keys of the game and also our key matchups and our what's trending up, trending down, or who's trending up and who's trending down and all the whole 9 yards, we recap the previous game that happened on Saturday afternoon against the Minnesota Wild. Early on in the first, the Flyers have an opportunity to break the ice around the 15-minute mark, but it was the 40-year-old goaltender himself, Marc-Andre Fleury, who did so many opportunities in this game that made sure he didn't look like the 40-year-old self to make sure that he was going to stop every puck he could. Kind of look like the old days when he was with the Penguins and also the days when he was with the Vegas Golden Knights. So he was standing tall in this game. And so it was stayed scoreless until around a few minutes later to avoid a 1-0 lead. And he stopped the Flyers' chances to give the Flyers a 1-0 lead. Later on in the stanza, Minnesota will get on the board first. And like I mentioned before about the stellar performance and also the year that he is having, and Kaprizov has come through again, and he made it a 1-0 Minnesota lead after 20. To the second we go, the Flyers at around the 11:30-minute mark of the second period, halfway through the second period. Flyers are going to try to get a power play goal by a good pass by Bobby Brink, will set up Travis Konechny and to Matvei Michkov. That could have been a tic-tac-toe goal, but I believe Michkov either misplayed or it was Marc-Andre Fleury or a defenseman getting in the way to keep the score still at a 1-0 Minnesota lead. Later on in the second period, as a 4-on-3 advantage, I believe, for the Wild, and they will get credit for another goal, this time on a breakaway chance after Sam Ersson making a stellar save, but not getting the rebound was Matt Boldy to give the Minnesota Wild a 2-0 lead late in the second period. And that's all the second period. That took all you need to know about what the circumstances was with that for that first or second period. Only 2 goals for Minnesota, and the Flyers remained scoreless after 40. Inside the third period we go, and Minnesota, after buzzing once again, and they will buzz like we always say, light the lamp one more time. And this was Marco Rossi. This time, getting credit for the Minnesota's third goal of the game, and giving the Wild a 3-0 lead early on in the third, or at the halfway point of the third period. Later on in the third, the Flyers will finally get on the board, and they will do so. And the Flyers will get some life here after a shot by Travis Sanheim, who is having himself a season, and will get credit for this one, and will make it a 3-1 Minnesota lead after. It will give Minnesota still a 2-goal cushion as it only cut the lead in at 3-1 in favor of the Wild. But the Wild will get one more goal on this Saturday afternoon, and that would be the one that got credit for the first goal. Go get goal number 2. That will be Kaprizov once again to give Minnesota a 4-1 lead, and also will win that game on that Saturday afternoon. Like I mentioned, 4-1 the final over at XO Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. So that's basically the big matchup of the game tonight. The Flyers, like I mentioned, come into this game tonight looking pretty good. They're looking not too shabby. They have some opportunities here and there to get some opportunities, and this is our key matchups of the game. So the big story of this game tonight is that basically it's been a season long. Even our good friend Pat Bernard brought up on the post-game show that the Flyers keep on losing. The top-tier talent could really be a concerning part as we get closer and closer to that All-Star break and also to the second half of the season. But for the Orange and Black tonight, I think this one was just a take on the chin, obviously. Minnesota, one of those top teams with Winnipeg, who is leading that Central in first place, and also one team closer in that maybe Central or even the Western Conference. So it's going to be a real tall task for them when they take on Minnesota. Next time they'll play Minnesota, if they ever go to the Stanley Cup Finals, that will be the next matchup because that was the last and final meeting of the year for Minnesota and Philadelphia. And the last time Minnesota and Philadelphia played before this game was on a couple Saturdays ago on the 26th, and that was more of a touchdown and a 2-point conversion game. That was more Sean Couturier, the big story in that game, and that was a 7-5 Flyers win. But back to Detroit tonight. Like I said, the Flyers played against Detroit back 7 days ago and saw history on that night, like Scott Laughton getting goal number 100 and also having 4 goals on that night on Thursday night against the Detroit Red Wings on that Thursday night in South Philly. So more of the same I expect here tonight. I expect the Flyers coming out with a lot more anticipation like they didn't have on Saturday night. So it will be good to know that they'll be back to normal as soon as it gets closer and closer. As for Detroit, they're on the outside looking in. Not looking too bad, but they are right in the mix of things. And hard to believe they're right behind the Ottawa Senators on the last couple wild cards of that division. So I'm expecting that it'll be a tall task for either Ottawa or Tampa Bay will be in that wild card position. But if the Flyers continue to win their games and also win games that are top-tier talent-wise, it could be a very good tall task for the Orange and Black, even though this is a rebuilding season. But they play very well against teams that are below 500 and struggle sometimes with teams that are over 500, if you know what I mean. All right, let's check out who's trending up and who is trending down on this Wednesday night of hockey. For the Flyers, the constant factor is that even though the Flyers don't play very well against teams that are up in the echelon of like Washington, maybe the Rangers, or even like a Carolina Hurricanes here and there, we have to know one thing, and that's the one thing that I always talk about on this team. Sure, it doesn't look pretty, but this is a rebuilding process. So I expect more of the same tonight, and they play the same schedule like you play the teams on your schedule. So if you continue to win games against teams that are really bad and then come down the road, make your presence known and say, okay, the one thing you have to do when it gets closer and closer to the playoffs is that you want to get some wins against teams that are on top of that metro or even like try to stay close in the playoff position. You got to beat the teams that you have to play against on your schedule. So that's the big top priority tonight. So, of course, it's a rebuilding season. It's a rebuilding process, but I expect more of the same here tonight as we saw on Thursday night. Like I mentioned, that was on Thursday night when these two clubs met in South Philly. For who's trending down, it's the big story that's kind of been a shocking story, to say the least, for Detroit, rather, because Detroit has the talent that they had like so many years that they had back in the day. And seeing them kind of struggle like this kind of reminds me of a time when the Flyers were struggling this much after so many great, successful years. Obviously, they got Patrick Kane, but Patrick Kane's probably here and there. That's like one step. I mean, I wouldn't say he's done, but he's not looked like the old Patrick Kane that we all remember. They got some players there like Montrezl Harrell. That's been a good defenseman for them. Please forgive me if I got his name wrong. I'm not too crazy about this guy's name. They got Mason Raymond. They got some other players on that team that Lucas Raymond, not Mason Raymond. Mason Raymond was a former player back in the day for I think the Flames, was it? But then they got Dylan Larkin that's playing very, very well. But they haven't been I wouldn't say that they are concerning because I think the one thing everybody was so happy to see them have a successful year last season, and also coming into the last couple of weeks of the season, basically eliminating the Flyers from playoff contention, but they got eliminated next night right after they eliminated the Flyers. But like there could be a good team on the rise sooner rather than later, but this is not the same Detroit team like they had back in the day with Pavel Datsyuk, Sergei Fedorov, Henrik Zetterberg, Johan Franzen, and Nils, and the list goes on and on and on about that. But I'm not happy that Detroit's struggling. I don't expect them to be struggling this much, but it's still a rarity to me that they are still in the they're in the Eastern Conference after so many years playing them in the Western Conference. I still kind of miss that Colorado and Detroit rivalry they had back in those early 1990s, and those were the best times to watch hockey in this day and age. Not saying this is now, but I mean the Avalanche and Detroit Red Wings were like really like kind of like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia in that early 2010 rivalry, like they had back in 2012 when the Flyers took on Pittsburgh and all that. Just like two rivals just can't stand each other. So I want to see that again if in the future reference and all that. All right, let's check out our injuries and scratches in this game tonight. Injuries for the Flyers, basically the same as it was on a couple nights from now. Nick Delorier is still out tonight with an upper body injury. Some scratches in this game for the Flyers. Emil Andre still out after missing the last couple games with that injury that he suffered against Columbus. Ivan Fedotov, I think he's more the third emergency goaltender, depending on with Alexei Kolosov and even our goaltender tonight, Sam Ersson, like both get injured. So he'll be the guy that will be getting that'll be the guy. That'll be the goaltender to go to if both of those players go down with injuries, and you have to deal with Ivan Fedotov. So, I mean, he's out tonight, obviously. And Eric Johnson, who's going to miss I think it's either his 11th or 12th straight game. Like I mentioned before, John Tortorella wants to see other young guys, like Emil Andre, Yegor Zamola, and some others along the way to see what they have in store for. And also, maybe this could be a good tall test to see what Eric Johnson has in store. But, I mean, it looks like Johnson's not too happy. I wouldn't say he's happy about it, but, I mean, it's just a priority of the business, I guess. I guess the one thing that the Flyers are looking for is, like, younger defensemen instead of pros. I mean, and I'm not saying Eric Johnson's a bad player. I guess they're just moving one step further with the younger players along the way as well. And before we go, we'll check out our starting goaltender matchup for the Flyers tonight. In goal for the Orange and Black, it will be Sam Ersson back in goal once again after a disappointing performance on Saturday afternoon against the Minnesota Wild. He is 6-4-2 this season with the goals against average of 2.87. And for Detroit, it will be Alex Lyon, the former Flyer, former Phantom, former player that used to be a part of our farm team, and Alex Lyon, who is also 4-4-0 this season and has a goals against average of 2.74. Back in the lineup tonight is Alex Lyon. They also had, before that, it was Cam Talbot, and also Alex Lyon gets to start. So I guess they either sent down Ville Husso, or it might be another Ivan Fedotov situation that they'll keep three goaltenders just in case of emergency goal, just in case if anything doesn't go right according to plan. And also they got to have an emergency goaltender just depending on what the other goaltenders have, or the other goaltender, if either Cam Talbot or Ville Husso gets injured, and the same thing with the Flyers with Ivan Fedotov as well. All right, and for our predictions for this game tonight, I expect the Flyers to be getting back into a roll here tonight. I expect more of the same as they do tomorrow as they take on the Kings, and it'll be the first of two more games in 2024 on the home slate, and then they'll be on the road again until the early parts of January. We'll be back home for the Flyers, but this will be the last two games for tomorrow night. I'll be back for the pregame for that, and also stay tuned for the post-game show to follow on Stream Punk Entertainment as well. But for my predictions, like I said, I expect the same here tonight like I did see on Thursday night against the Red Wings. Not a history-making night. I don't expect Scott Lawn scoring 4 goals again. or maybe Matvey Michkov, or maybe like a Sean Couturier makes a little history tonight as well. But I don't see any history happening here tonight. But you know what? With this Detroit team, you never know. So I expect more of the same here tonight for the Flyers. So I got the Flyers winning tonight, and I expect them to come out tomorrow against the Kings. I mean, that's going to be another tall test too, because the Kings are one of the best teams in that Western Conference. So they're going to probably be looking forward to that matchup tomorrow night as well. So anyways, guys, that is a wrap for the Hockey Night on Board Flyers pregame show. Remember to stay tuned after the game for the Third Line John Flyers postgame show with yours truly, Joey Marks, and the Godboard Pat Bernard. After the game goes final against the Detroit Red Wings tonight, that will be immediately after the game goes final. So, like I said, I'll be back for the postgame. I'll be back again tomorrow and on Saturday night for the pregame shows between the Flyers and the Los Angeles Kings tomorrow night, and the Columbus Blue Jackets to close out the 2024 homestand for the Orange and Black. But this has been the Hockey Night on Board Flyers pregame show. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. Once again, I am your host, James Scorza here. Until then, we will see you again next time, and enjoy the rest of the games going on tonight. And until then, we'll see you at the end of the game when the clock hits 0 and also when post-game hits. Until then, let's go Flyers, and we will see you next time.